What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. We just picked up another part from Subaru so we can get a little more of this block put together real quick. In this video, I want to completely finish this engine and maybe even get it dropped in the car. Still waiting on a few parts from UPS. They are delayed. They were supposed to be here Wednesday, got rescheduled to yesterday, and now it's rescheduled to Monday. So shout out UPS. Hopefully we'll have a Monday. Those are just the 4 cam bolts we need to get the front end wrapped up. But yesterday, I did go and pick up a new timing belt tensioner bracket from Subaru. As if you guys remember, I snapped the little ear off this guy here. So, sucked there, but we got a new one. Now, this piece came with the ETS rotated kit. It's just the replacement inlet for the new turbo. So this is going to go underneath the intake manifold, and it bolts up to the stock location. Let's go and get this bracket on. And then we can get our tensioner on, the idler pulleys, the back covers, pretty much everything except for the cam gears. We can probably slap the cam gears on, we just can't bolt them in. Okay, we got the tensioner on, all the idlers except for the little one. We put that one on once we get the belt on. I got the back covers on. I just kind of mounted this inlet up. I think the kit must come with a different bolt, I'm assuming, or maybe some washers, because I think this bolt bottoms out in the back of the intake manifold. You can't get it any tighter than that, really. I think at this point we're good to torque down the intake manifold. So we'll get those bolts in the TGVs tightened down, and then we can probably just work on a little bit of wiring. There's not much on a Subaru, so it's pretty easy, but we can get the throttle body all hooked up, and then some of the wires around the top. Now, this little guy here, I believe this is the spot where we're gonna be tapping in for our oil pressure gauge. I have like a little adapter. So I believe how this works, we separate the top from the bottom. They just thread into each other. And I have a little adapter piece. It's like a 2-way. And that allows for us to run our oil pressure sensor and this connector as well. So this little hose connection we got here essentially just goes from breather to breather on the valve cover. If you guys remember correctly, when we pulled the engine apart, there was a lot of water in there, and I still don't really know why, but these hoses clearly had a lot of water in them because the oil was like just white mush, which means there was definitely water in there. I really have no idea how, but I just went and cleaned out the hose with brake clean and water. Probably going to have to do the same with all the other AOS lines. But yeah, I really have no idea why there's water in that other block. The car was always in the garage, and it never really saw water. So I have no idea. Still a mystery to me. But we're going to go ahead, get this little hose set up on the car. And then we'll go ahead and get the little adapter in for the oil pressure sensor. And other than that, that's about all we can do for today before these cam bolts come in. All right, quick little update. I just got off the phone with my buddy Chase, and I think we might have figured out why I had all that water in my block. I don't know how, but that hose that I had connecting the 2 valve covers, I bought that separate from Advanced Auto when I got the whole AOS set up. I guess the hose they gave me was heater hose instead of like fuel injection line, and I guess a heater hose creates moisture. I don't know how. I mean, a hose is a hose as far as I know, but there's a difference to them, and now I know. So now we got to make a run to O'Reilly's or another parts store and try to find some fuel injection 5/8 hose and we'll just redo that whole setup we got. Hopefully we won't have the same issue. That would really suck if we got this thing all together and a month down the road we had hydrolock on this. So glad we caught that now, and we'll get that fixed. Alright, so we just took this factory sender out of the car. So this is how this is all going to work. This is the adapter I was talking about. This is going to thread down into the hole in the block. The AEM oil pressure sensor is going to thread in here. And then the factory sender is going to thread back in on the top. And that way everything remains in place. And we're just adding the sensor. So that's exactly how it's supposed to go. We got your factory sender into the adapter, the AEM sensor into the adapter, and then the adapter into the block. Now the reason I angled this AEM sensor kind of towards the back, the alternator sits here and your AC compressor sits here, and it gets really tight in this area. So I didn't want to set it up and then have to move it later. And also, with it hooked up here, I still have easy access to the connector, and then the connector is going to run straight back and through the grommet and the firewall to the gauge in the car. So I kind of like that setup, just like that. Well. UPS finally showed up with their cam bolts. Okay, back out in the garage. This is a little sneak peek of the next video. As we were waiting for these cam bolts, I decided to start the fuel system. But now that we got these, let's go ahead and finish up this engine, and then we can get it in the car. Alright, must not to hit the record button, but we got all these torqued down. Shout out Company 23 for making these frickin' tools. Makes life so easy. Cam gears aren't spinning around as you're trying to tighten them. Works like a charm. So now we can get this timed, and I'll show you. Timing these motors is pretty easy. You see on top of your intake cam gear here, you got one line that lines up with the line on the top of the case. Once you line those up, you look down below. You want your two lines to line up between your intake and exhaust cam. There's actually two lines in there. And then at the very bottom, and then on the side here, I know it's kind of hard to see, it's kind of dark, but there is a line, it's kind of painted white. That line has to line up with the mark on the side of the case as well. And it's the same deal on this. And then your crank sprocket, you can see there's a line on the crank sprocket here and a line right underneath your crank sensor. Those line up. Once I get this belt on, I'll show you guys all you can see there's like timing marks on the belt as well that help you guide it up. Okay, so now we got the engine timed. I'm gonna do a few rotations of the crank, make sure nothing's binding up, everything's right. Make sure everything lines up right after you do a few rotations, and then we should be able to slap the covers on and we'll be good. Alright, we just did 4 rotations. Everything's still lining up as it should be. And you can see these lines even got a little bit closer now that the tensioner grenade pin's pulled. We are pretty good on both of those. And everything's lining up. Let's get our bolt out of our crank. And then we can get our front covers on, crank pulley on. That's pretty much it. We'll get this thing lifted up, get our clutch on the back. We still got to put that little cover on. I think what we're going to do is roll the car in the garage. I'm going to have the engine on the crane, and we'll roll the car right under the engine, drop it right in. We got a new oil filter here, might as well throw her on. Make sure you get her nice and oiled up. Then we can take this and thread her right on there. Alright, it's the next day now. Decided to wait until today because one, it was getting really dark. It's pretty freaking cold in here. And today, we finally got these gaskets that we needed to finish off the top of this block. So now we can get those on, we can get the fuel rails on, and be one step closer and a little bit easier than putting it in once it's already in the car. I'm gonna get those gaskets in behind that little door there, and then clean out our fuel rails. Got to rebuild the injectors, just put new O-rings on them, and then we'll have our little cross line here, which is a -8, and then after we get all that stuff done, we'll pull this off, we'll get that little back door on there, and then get our flywheel clutch set up on, and we'll be good to go. Just freshened up this injector, all new O-rings, so this one is good to go. Just gotta get these other 3 done and we'll be good to drop these in. All of our injectors are all refreshed. We got our rails cleaned up and blown out, so everything's ready to go. We got our new spacers and countersunk bolts to go into these radium fuel rails. These things are freaking beautiful, by the way. Let's get these injectors placed in the TGVs and then we'll slap the rails on. So that's it. We got our rails on, injectors on. We got our line connecting rail to rail. Kind of got it nice and tucked up underneath, so it kind of hides away. Remember, we still have to mount the alternator and the AC compressor on here, so don't want it to interfere with any of that. All right, no more excuses. Let's get this thing on the crane. We'll get the clutch in and get this frickin' thing back in the car. In case you're wondering, we went with an ACT twin for this build. I was going to do a triple disc, but I've heard a lot of people really like these things, so I figured might as well give it a shot. It's like $1,500 cheaper than the triple. We're gonna give it a shot. If it doesn't work, then obviously we'll have to upgrade to a triple. But let's get this thing out of the packaging and we'll start throwing it onto the back of the engine.
Turn me up, Koopy.
The engine is finally in the car. I'm not gonna lie, that was a pain in the butt to do. I don't know why I could not get it mated up with the transmission. It took me, no lie, 4 hours to get that engine block mated with the transmission. I don't know why I was getting stuck on the splines, but eventually I just kept wiggling it, moving the crank around, trying to get it to line up, and the splines finally aligned and she slid on. So I've got all the bell housing bolts tight. I got all the motor mounts tight. We're good to go there. I'm gonna get this thing back on the ground, roll it outside, and we'll reattack tomorrow. It's freaking almost midnight and I gotta be up at 5 in the morning. So gotta get to bed, I gotta clean up and still get this outside. So I'm gonna wrap up this video right here. Sorry if it was kind of all over the place. We kept having random parts come in and different things going on, but now at least we got the heart back in the car and we can start assembling, and then fuel system will be next. So until then, peace out, see y'all later.